as Washington urges Israel not to launch a ground operation in the Gaza Strip's southernmost city after a 24-hour period that saw local authorities claim that there were nearly 100 killed in Rafah. The U.S. Middle East envoy back in Israel as part of efforts to revive truce talks that have stalled now for weeks. For more, let's cross to Jerusalem and correspondent Jordanna Miller. Jordanna, what's the latest?
Well, the president's envoy, Brett McCurk, is meeting right now with the Israeli prime minister. He's reportedly brought with him the revised Hamas positions on a potential hostage release deal and ceasefire. Remember, the sides have been working for weeks on at least phase one of this deal, which would bring 6 weeks of quiet in return for the release of some of the 132 hostages, mostly the civilian women, the elderly, and the injured, and also bring in desperately needed aid into the Gaza Strip. Those are kind of the parameters. When we heard last night from the War Cabinet General Benny Gantz say there were early indications of progress, I mean, most people here translated that into meaning that Hamas had softened their positions in some way, because before that, Israel had called Hamas's positions non-starters, delusional, and dismissed them. So we can expect or hope that as we learn more details and there's more progress, it could be that Hamas has softened their position on the number of Palestinian prisoners they want exchanged for each hostage, and the high value ones, those serving for murder. Perhaps there's fewer of those that they're asking be released. Perhaps they've dropped their demands about changing the rules at a shared holy site here in Jerusalem, or positions on where the Israeli army would, deploy to during this quiet. Hamas had before expected Israel to pull out of every inch of the Gaza Strip. That never seemed very likely. Maybe now they will agree on something more reasonable or practical. Maybe Israel would move out of the populated city centers and move to the periphery. All of this, though, being talked about with the U.S. envoy in this next push. The Israeli War Cabinet will meet tonight, and they will consider the possibility of sending an Israeli delegation to the next round of these talks, likely in Europe.
The question then becomes, you mentioned the desperate need for aid. You mentioned how these talks have been going on for weeks without any conclusion. Will a ground operation in Rafah happen?
Well, it's very clear that a massive military operation in Rafah is weeks away, though it is being used as the threat to get Hamas to soften their positions and to get at least phase one of this deal in place before Ramadan, before the Muslim holy month, which starts on March 10th. It is being used as a pressure tactic and a threat. But realistically, Israel cannot go into Rafah without moving over 1 million Gazans out. They have to go north, likely northwest. That is a major endeavor. The Israeli army says they're working on those evacuation plans. We haven't seen them yet, but it's clear it would take weeks. Remember, it took weeks for nearly 1 million Gazans to head south in the beginning of this war from Gaza City, the first point, the first kind of focus of Israel's war against Hamas. So, it is not imminent, and, it may not happen for several weeks. If we get a deal, then maybe it won't happen at all. But maybe it'll happen if the deal breaks down after Ramadan, after the Jewish holiday of Passover. Maybe we'll have quiet through March and April. We'll have to see. Remember, it's also a sensitive operation because of the peace treaty with Egypt. There's continual talks going on between Israeli and Egyptian officials. Israel wants to take control of part of that border.